father, I'm open anytime he wants to meet. He said he was going to come, but he had a commercial. So if he just lets me know where the next commercial shoot is, I'll be there. I'll show up. I really am looking forward to it. I got a ton of respect for him, and I got a ton of respect for Shedeur because all he's done since I've been here is work. That's all he's done is compete. He was here early in the offseason. Hell, he bought me a horse head. I mean, tried to, cheese up to me early.
$17.7 million before playing a full NFL season. Let that sink in. Not from a massive contract, not from a shoe deal with Nike or Adidas, from his players' union. The same organization that most NFL players barely think about when they cash their checks. How does that even happen? To understand it, you have to go back further than the draft, further than Colorado, further than the Deion Sanders era that everyone either loved or absolutely couldn't stand. You have to understand who Shedeur Sanders actually is, why the country couldn't stop talking about him, and why that obsession turned into something nobody in NFL history had ever seen before. Because this story is not just about football. It's about what happens when culture, controversy, and talent.
He's been a coach for a decade. I think he gets that.
Now, he might not be sympathetic to what
at least
Kevin Stefanski is going through.
Yeah, well,
because Kevin's got 2 head coaching jobs now, and I'm sure Deion would like to coach in the NFL.
He also brought it up, and some people took it the wrong way. He said that he didn't reach out, and he felt that was odd, probably because he's had other guys reach out about other players, and this is his son, and he said that he didn't reach out to him. So Deion's allowed to think that it's odd.
I really didn't.
Would Lane Kiffin find it odd if the Giants didn't say anything to him about Jackson Dart? Just didn't want to talk to Lane Kiffin. Wouldn't you?
Shedeur Sanders grew up in a world that most people only see on television. His father was one of the most electrifying athletes to ever play the game. Deion Sanders, primetime, Hall of Famer, a man who never walked into a room quietly. Growing up under that name means 2 things. Doors open faster, and the expectations are heavier than anything you'll carry on a football field. From the beginning, people had opinions about Shedeur, strong ones. Some believed he was genuinely talented and working every day to prove it. Others thought the whole thing was manufactured, that the Colorado rebuild was more of a reality show than a football program, that Deion was running a PR machine and Shedeur was the face of it. Those people were loud, very loud. And here's what's interesting. That noise, that constant debate, that never-ending argument about whether Shedeur was real or whether he was riding his father's name, it didn't hurt him. It actually did the opposite.
No idea, especially because he wasn't top 10 in jersey sales. Like, I could kind of understand, or at least you could get there maybe, if he was like the number 2 or 3 overall selling jersey, but he wasn't in the top 10. You mentioned it. I think it was 9.9 or 9.8 million from Panini of America. And then the other things that were mentioned in there were like Madden, the NCAA game was mentioned, and then that's not even including his other endorsements. Like, I don't understand how someone who didn't really kind of make any headway in the league just yet has that
I don't,
a
fucking
needle mover.
No,
man.
he definitely is. Like,
no doubt.
We are huge fans of Shedeur.
Yeah.
We love the Colorado story. I love transferring in, obviously going to HBCU with your family, putting everybody on. Like, I'm a fan of Shedeur. That is a lot of money. I'm just saying, if the NFLPA is generating that amount of capital just for one player who is not the star of the league. He's one of the stars, but not the guy. I mean, if the NFLPA is able to generate that type of money, that's good news for the future of the NFL and for the athletes of the NFL. If the NFLPA is also acting as like an agency arm for you, bringing money in, it's like if that's one player, that's Shedeur Sanders. It's crazy to think if they were able to, what they'd be able to do with Mahomes or Kelsey in this world, obviously with how sellable he is. That was just a huge. I was, to take your word from earlier, I was gobsmacked when I saw that amount of money because I'm like, where's it all coming from? And is this going to continue?
I was too, and you saw his college teammate, Heisman winner Travis Hunter being in number 2 with the crazy number as well. But that was to see.
When Deion took over at Colorado, nobody expected what happened next. The program transformed almost overnight. Players transferred in, the media showed up, the cameras never left. Colorado games became must-watch television, not just for football fans, but for casual observers who just wanted to see what happened next. And in the middle of all of it was Shedeur. He played with a confidence that some people found inspiring and others found genuinely irritating. He talked like someone who already knew how this story was going to end. He dressed like he belonged on a runway, not just a sideline. He posted, he performed, he leaned into the spotlight in a way that felt completely intentional. People called it arrogance. His supporters called it self-belief. That debate never got resolved. It just kept fueling the conversation. Then came the 2025 NFL Draft. Most mock drafts had Shedeur going somewhere in the top 10. Some had him as a top 5 pick. His numbers at Colorado were undeniable. His accuracy, his pocket presence, his ability to read defenses under pressure. On paper, there was a strong case. But the NFL is not a game played on paper. Team after team passed on him. The phone didn't ring when people expected it to. The moment that was supposed to define his story became this long, uncomfortable silence watched by millions of people on live television.
17 million was insane. I mean, he was clearly by far, in my opinion, the most popular player from his draft class for a number of reasons. People hated to see him, hated everything about him, and then people loved him, loved everything about him. Obviously, he didn't make the headway on the field, didn't play a ton until the end of the season, but that was insane. I am interested, like you said, to see where the breakdown or how the breakdown really is. All I care about is that he's getting the money, that he's
Bingo.
Because every time, the NFL, once the draft happened, I mean, I feel like every other post of theirs was about Shedeur. Once he started to play, it was about Shedeur. A lot of the conversation throughout training camp, his reps, so all the things. So I'm glad that he actually benefited financially from it, but I'm definitely interested to see the actual breakdown. Like you said, yes, this does bode well for the future of the NFL when it comes to players and bringing in this type of money.
Yeah, it's kind of all listed out publicly, I guess, in a federal filing. It just says royalties and player marketing. One of them, though, is for $9 million here on 2025, May 16th. We assume that one would be the card Panini one that was in there. There's a couple other $1 million ones that just say royalty marketing, June 27, 2025.
That one might be the NCAA March Man or video game cover.
It's all before the season even kicked off.
Yeah.
Let's go back to where the wound started. Because this story doesn't begin with Monken, it begins with the previous regime. Shedeur Sanders was drafted by the Cleveland Browns as a 5th-round pick, not the first quarterback off the board, not even close, and Kevin Stefanski, the coach who selected him, never once picked up the phone to call Deion Sanders, not during the pre-draft process, not during camp, not when his son was sitting 4th on the depth chart with almost no realistic path to the field. Think about that for a second. Not from the outside, from Deion's point of view. Here's a man who spent a decade as a head coach specifically to prepare his son for the NFL. He watched Shedeur go from a struggling Colorado program at 1-11 to a bowl game at 9-4. He sacrificed his own brand, his own comfort, to put that kid in position to succeed. And when Shedeur lands in Cleveland, the staff acts like he doesn't exist. Deion eventually said publicly that he thought it was odd nobody reached out, and people laughed it off, dismissed it as a celebrity dad being sensitive.
Watch Monken's body language when he talks about Shedeur. There's no hedge, no the kid has a lot to prove throat clearing that coaches use when they're not really committed to a player. He says flat and easy, all he's done since I've been here is work. That's not a quote crafted for press conferences, that's a man telling you what he sees in the building every single day. He then adds, and this is the line most people slid right past, he bought me a horse head. He's laughing about it, he's relaxed. That is a coach who likes his quarterback, not tolerates, likes. I got a ton of respect for Coach Sanders, obviously as a player, but also what he's done as a coach. That sentence has a specific architecture. He separates Deion the player from Deion the coach. Why does that matter? Because every person who was trying to make this a drama was framing it as celebrity worship, like Monken would be meeting with a Hall of Famer out of obligation or star power. Monken explicitly says no, I respect what he's done on the sideline. I respect the work. That's a peer speaking about a peer, not a fan managing an awkward situation. Mary Kay Cabot, one of the most connected Browns reporters in the building, came out and suggested the quarterback competition was over. Monken immediately shot it down. Then the Deion meeting narrative started picking up steam as a negative story, and Monken immediately addressed it again. Two separate narratives, two clear responses. That's not someone reacting. That's someone with a pre-decided message who knows exactly what he wants the world to understand. Before Shedeur arrived, Colorado's program was 1-11. His last full season there, they went 9-4 and reached a bowl game. The arrows don't lie, and the people using Daddy Ball as a
Dismissal have to explain how Daddy Ball produces a 3-year arc like that without a genuinely talented quarterback executing under pressure every week. Here's a question I want you to sit with. When was the last time you saw an NFL head coach, under real media pressure, say, if he just lets me know where the commercial shoot is, I'll be there? That is not a man managing a distraction. That is a man eliminating one.
What Monken did in those 4 sentences at the podium is something that requires a very specific kind of psychological security. Let's call it what it is: identity threat management. When the outside world tries to define your situation as chaotic, the insecure response is to over-explain, to get defensive, to qualify everything. The secure response is to reframe completely and move on. Monken didn't say, "Look, I understand the concerns," but he said, "I can't wait to talk to him." Full stop. That signals perceived locus of control. He is not a man who feels like the Deshaun narrative controls him. He controls it. He's not outsourcing his peace of mind to what ESPN Cleveland says or what Twitter thinks about helicopter dads. He has decided what this situation is: a professional relationship between 2 coaches who want the same thing for one player, and he's communicating that reality outward, not asking for permission to believe it. Now, look at the social proof dynamics in the locker room for a second. 42 other men in that building are watching how their head coach handles this, and what they just saw is a coach who doesn't flinch, who doesn't run from complicated, who picks up the phone or flies to a commercial shoot and handles it. That matters, not because of Deshaun specifically, because of what it says about the culture being built. And here's the part that keeps me up. Shedeur Sanders is playing for a starting job against a man, Deshaun Watson, who may never be what he was before the injury. That is an enormous amount of psychological weight for a young quarterback. The last regime made him feel invisible. This regime is making him feel seen. And the research on how that affects athletic performance is not subtle. Players perform differently when they believe the organization believes in them.
Think about it from Shedeur's perspective for a second. You watched your dad get ignored for an entire season by the people who were supposed to develop you. You watched the previous staff treat you like an afterthought while they burned roster spots and organizational goodwill on a rehabilitation project that never came. And now there's a new head coach in the building who laughs about your gift, calls your dad a peer, and publicly says he's ready to fly to wherever to have a conversation. That is a different world. And a quarterback who trusts his coach plays differently than one who is waiting to be abandoned. Organizations don't have accidents that cost them money or social capital. Every move is calculated, so read what Cleveland is doing carefully. When the depth chart was reshuffled and the conversation quietly shifted toward what Shedeur could be, not just what he was last year, that happened without a press release. That's how real organizational decisions get communicated, not through announcements, through atmosphere.
The beat reporters who cover this team daily are now writing about Shedeur's development, not his ceiling. That's a different framing. Development implies investment. Ceiling implies judgment. This team has moved from judging him to investing in him. And when Todd Monken stands at a podium and says, "I got a ton of respect for him, and all he's done since I've been here is work," translate that. What he's actually saying is, "I have watched this kid closely. I like what I see, and I am telling you publicly so that it cannot be walked back." That is accountability language. That is a man staking his credibility on a player. Organizations don't make that kind of statement about players they're hedging on. But to understand why this matters, we have to go back to last year's version of Shedeur in Cleveland. The analysts who watched his tape closely didn't see a bad quarterback. They saw a quarterback playing without infrastructure, without rhythm, without the kind of trust from the coaching staff that allows you to make mistakes and grow through them. One analyst noted he looked like a player in survival mode rather than development mode. That is a coaching failure as much as a player failure, and the Browns front office clearly agreed because Stefanski is gone and Monken is running the offense now.
There are 52 other men in that building watching this play out. Some of them have been in organizations where the front office and the coaching staff were pulling in different directions on the quarterback question. They know what that feels like. They know how it poisons meetings, makes receivers less willing to run routes into traffic, makes linemen subconsciously less committed in protection. What Monken is doing with every press conference, every deliberate statement about Shedeur, is closing that door before it opens. He is making it clear, this is my quarterback. Get behind him. And that kind of clarity is worth more than any stat line. If this situation resolves the way the evidence suggests, and by evidence I mean Monken's language, his behavior, his organizational positioning, Shedeur Sanders is starting week 1. And if he gets a full offseason of reps with the ones, a coaching staff that communicates belief rather than doubt, and a father who has been brought into the process rather than excluded from it, then the version of Shedeur we saw last year is not the version that shows up in September. The Browns' ceiling this year depends almost entirely on whether that's true. 3 years from now, when we look back at this moment, one of 2 stories is being told. Either Todd Monken is the coach who recognized what everyone else missed, that Shedeur Sanders needed an environment, not just an opportunity, and built something real in Cleveland, or this is the moment where the wishful thinking peaked before the reality set in. Right now, the evidence points toward the first story, but this is the NFL, and the NFL has a way of humbling certainty.
We started with one idea. Todd Monken didn't just say he wants to meet with Shedeur Sanders. He said he'd fly to a commercial shoot to make it happen. You've now seen what that actually means. That's a coach who has already decided what Shedeur is to this team. The meeting is a formality. The decision has been made. Because underneath all of this, beneath the press conferences and the narrative management and the depth chart positioning, there's a kid who spent a year being treated like an asterisk on his own draft class. A kid whose father poured everything into preparing him for a league that looked right through him. And now, there's a man standing at a podium saying, I see your work. I respect your family. I'm flying to the shoot. Let's build something. That is not nothing. In a business that eats young quarterbacks alive before they ever find their footing, that might be everything. So here's what I want to know. Is Todd Monken the first Cleveland Browns coach to truly understand what they have in Shedeur Sanders? Or is all of this goodwill just setting up the most painful public collapse we've seen from a young quarterback in years? One side says the environment finally matches the talent. The other side says the talent was never what anyone hoped. Drop it below. I'll be reading every single one.